It's fine. Okay, so we did all that before lunch, and now we want to add some more new things. One is in the layout. Right now we've got the styles here, which is not so great. What would be nice is if we could have a CSS file somewhere else. But there's also things that couldn't really go in here in the first place anyway, like images, or if you have downloads like PDFs. There's things that they don't need to be dynamic, and they shouldn't be. So Sinatra adds an extra thing called a public folder, and that is again one of the magic named ones. So we don't need to tell it where it is, and that's where all the static stuff goes. So let's put styles.css in there, and just as a test, do p color blue. We can add some real CSS later. This is just to make sure it's working. Sorry, I'll be back in a second. So style CSS inside public, and it's just a normal CSS file.
So sometimes he marks underscores and brackets. That doesn't mean anything. I'm wondering if it's a mistake.
It's to tell us which one it's starting and ending. See if I can find an example.
Well, it doesn't matter. It does it everywhere. So.
Okay, no, I can't find the example. It changes the colors just to tell you where it's starting and ending.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like in 6 nested ones, you'll know which one it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and how do we link to it? Like this. So we create a normal link rel style sheet, href, blah 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 tag. And anything in the public folder is just in / blah.
But why is that? I don't get that, because shouldn't there be public folder / styles? Because we're in the view folder right now with the layout.
No, because it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
So what actually happens is, okay, so I'll go to /styles.css. Actually, let's open this in another folder. Okay, so say I go to /about. The first thing it does is it goes through the list of these URLs and goes, okay, is it /hello? No. Is it /hello Steve? No. Is it /blah blah blah? And it goes, nope, 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 nope. I don't see any. Oh, actually, no, it sees it there. So it goes, okay, I found one. If I go style CSS, actually, just for a laugh, actually, no, that won't work. Never mind. It goes to the list and goes, okay, none of these are style CSS, so I'll look in public for something that matches. So you don't need to tell it, I want you to look in public. It's more, that's where it looks when it can't find anything else. Actually, I think it's the reverse. I think it looks in public first. I can't remember. But it's along those lines. This one? Yep.
So you actually put it after the style section?
Yeah. We should delete this one. I'm going to leave it just for an example, but
So another question about the type.
this one?
Yeah.
Yep.
How did you, what
I
does that mean?
always just copy and paste this, to be honest.
Okay.
I think theoretically you could have things that do the same job as CSS but that aren't CSS,
Mhm.
and you would tell the browser this is
Like less, for example, if I had CSS.
yep. In practicality, it never happens because CSS is just so, I don't know, standardized. Well, is it? Hold on. That was on. Is gonna work? Maybe I'm talking nonsense. Actually, yeah, no, okay. So this link thing, you can use link for different stuff. They're doing something crazy with it. Oh. Oh, well, okay, link. Okay, yeah, so no, I was on the wrong path there. So this link thing can do a few other tricks, but it's very fuzzy. So like here they're using it for style sheets, more style sheets. But here they're using it for something else crazy that I'm not even sure what. And this is a search engine thing, not so important. But yeah, so basically you can do other stuff without link. That's just to tell the browser the thing that I'm doing. Yep.
You need that styles.css in that folder though.
This one. Yeah, if I rename it, it'll just get lost. Site. Inspect element. It's gonna be saying, hey, I tried to find this, but I couldn't find it. Because it's called styles, but I renamed it to not styles. Or what was that?
I'm just wondering, cause, is the type text CSS thing, is that, cause we're in Sinatra or not, or is it just,
Nope, this is.
like, in the pre-work or in the tutorials, they didn't do that?
That's a good point. I think you probably don't need it. I think it's one of those things that I think you officially used to need it, but then, or officially used to need it because maybe you weren't using CSS, so you need to tell I am using CSS, but it's gone to the point where no one is ever not using CSS, so all the browsers just go, well, okay, if you don't have it, I'll just trust you.
But it's not something specific, just to Sinatra or something?
No, it's definitely, yeah, definitely all of the HTML, by the time it gets to the browser, like it's interpreting it like letter by letter,
Mhm.
so it doesn't know did Sinatra put this here or did anything else put it there. It's just, oh, okay, I see link rel. Okay, so if it all worked, you should see something go blue or whatever CSS that you put in. Obviously you can put in a ton more stuff. This is just a demo. And I'll try and find an image. So you can do this if you want, but you already need to. Let's put this src equals / ship.ping. So the same works with images. So I just put ping into the public folder, and I can do image src ship.ping, and it should appear here. So like a logo or something. And the same applies to PDFs or whatever you want to put in.
Where did you put, can you show again?
So I just put it like in the public folder,
Mhm.
just next to styles.
Mhm.
And the same rule applies that it starts with / blah. So I don't need to do slash public, I just do slash ship.
I don't think mine is working because
If you do,
this should be red and I just have this
okay.
and then embedded it.
You called it public folder. So
And
it's
I'm
not,
not supposed to call it public.
yeah, well it's not
Just
public.
public?
Yeah.
So, it's in, that's one of the magic names.
Yep. And that's why I didn't find it, because we didn't tell it. It just knew.
No, it's good. No, it's just playing around with CSS and whatever. But image files you just like have to grab from somewhere and then into that link. Yeah, otherwise, and it will look in that folder, which is in that case CSS. So in the public
Yep.
folder.
So it doesn't really know what CSS file is, or Sinatra doesn't care, it just says, you asked me for something called CSS, I give you CSS. Okay, yeah, so public is a magic folder. Has to be called public or it won't find it. You don't need it if you don't use it, but it works. Any questions about that? Nope, okay. So that's where anything that's not dynamic like CSS goes. Oh yeah, we got rid of that. Alright, so we've got a sort of dynamic site in that it prints out these names, but it's always the same names, it doesn't react to any kind of user input. So let's do the first bit of that. And there's 2 or 3 different ways of doing this. We're going to do the simplest one today and then move on to the more fancy ones tomorrow, or maybe Monday. So add a new get, and we want, oh yeah, minor thing, so I briefly mentioned it. If you ever forget that slash, it gets very confused. So if I go to, so I took off the slash from about, and now it just goes broke. So always make sure there's a slash on the start of those URLs. And what do we call this? By. So let's call it by and then name.
Is there any particular logic to when you need spaces between brackets and
I think
items?
the only one I can think of that really matters is this one. Like if you put a space here, it breaks.
No, it doesn't.
Oh.
I didn't put.
Oh, okay, maybe it doesn't. It might only be when you define a function, I think. I don't know, basically try putting a space, and if it explodes, stop putting a space there. There's a few places where you can put spaces, but it's very confusing. I think, yeah, you can be pretty liberal with it.
Okay.
Basically try it, and if it explodes.
So some of the CSS stuff, for example, you put the curly brackets away from the start. Yeah, exactly. They
Yep.
leave it. Does that matter, or would it make it? Would it make it?
No, these are mostly just like for you as a human
Okay.
to read. But yeah, I think it's definitely you figure it out by breaking it. And I think, yeah, for the most part you can put spaces. I don't know, it's sometimes very arbitrary, like you're not supposed to put a space here, it'll work, but it's technically incorrect, but that's not very obvious. Or it'll work 99 times out of 100 and then one time you'll get a weird bug that's not really obvious. But that's only in this exact situation, weirdly. Whereas in Ruby you can have, yeah, I don't know. Basically there is no single sensible rule, it's a bit random. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna test this, so don't type it just yet. Alright, cool, that works. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so type that one out and then I'll explain what's going on. Okay, so all of the previous URLs were very static, like /hello is /hello, and hello Steve is always hello Steve. But now we want to be able to say by Dave, by Steve, by person 958. But we want to do something based on that URL. Like if I can think of Facebook / I don't know, let's just click on a random user, I don't know, Alice Woody Woody. So we want, when we go to Facebook / blah 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 username.
I never saw, is there always a number at the end?
No. No, I think that's new. I think I'm just, I don't have a number.
Yeah.
Actually, I wonder. Alright, we get a totally different,
Oh, interesting.
maybe there's a lot of them.
They're both blonde.
Yeah.
I don't know, all of the Alices are blonde, it's just some kind of rule. Okay, so we want, based on the URL, to do something, so we want to find Steve. In this case we're going to be really lazy and just say by plus the name. So not really anything fancy, but we're doing something with it. And so we told it, okay, well actually, so we'll talk about the URL structure first for a bit. So these URLs were static, that it will look for exactly an URL hello underscore steve and nothing else. Whereas this will match anything bye slash anything, or roughly anything. And they will all go to the same URL. Which again would be impossible with the static HTML files, because then you would need to create a file called, I got rid of the Facebook one. Let's go that one. I mean, you could create a file called edwardmcgahan.html
You
and
would have to do one for every.
exactly, which could be done, but would be obviously really annoying.
So what does params stand for?
Params is again a bit of a magic one. In Sinatra and Rails, it's a variable that exists all of the time. It's a hash, and basically it's a hash of the stuff that is in the URL. Actually,
Okay. That's why we have kind of something like a symbol there.
yep. I'll go a bit nuts for a second. So if I go a bit crazy and start putting extra stuff in the URL, day equals Tuesday, color equals blue, params becomes this hash of all of the stuff that is in the URL. It's a bit smushed together. Basically, it takes like everything in there and crams it in. And gives us sometimes it gives us extra stuff that we don't really care about, like this splat and captures. I don't even know what they are, and that's fine. In this case, we want to get out the name. So, params, it's a hash. It's one of those ones to kind of, again, worry less about what it is and how it works, but more like, how do I use it? Like.
So you actually active is only the do and then return params inspect.
Yeah. Yeah, because it is kind of magic and it's a bit odd. And again, it's more like to reuse the pattern last time. So I don't know, maybe if I do this again in a week and I'm doing like, okay, I want to get the thing out of the URL, how to do it last time. Okay, I went params name, and I know I'll just get it. But doing params inspect is handy because it shows you what's in there. Okay, so let's get rid of params inspect and stick this. Okay, and so this is obviously a very simplified program, but what it's doing is it's grabbing something from the URL, forming a sentence with it, and kicking it out. We can also use params in the template if you want. It exists there as well. So I don't know. We don't have anything here, but we could do hello. Oops. What am I doing? So we could do this if we wanted. We're not going to do it right now, maybe some other time. But just to know you can do it, that params is pretty much everywhere. Okay, so again, this is still not very useful. We've printed out a word, but it's still kind of static. The next bit, I need you guys to copy something. So if you go to Dropbox Academy Spring 2015, Edward Week 1, there is a file called Twitter Helper. And if you copy that into Sinatra intro or whatever you called your folder, basically the same folder as your server RB, and it's Edward Week 1.
Sinatra, the whole.
Just the Twitter helper.rb. Yeah.
How do I actually
can drag a folder over to this bookmarky thing. So it's not places, it's the one like below it.
I don't have to bookmark.
Should be there somewhere. Okay, everybody get that? All good?
Should we save it in a should we take the document or just save it in
You want to copy it so that you have server RB and Twitter helper in the same directory. And you take a brief look at it. It's the same thing we did yesterday. To connect to Twitter, there's a function that takes a word and it's going to return some text. So it's mostly just for a demo, doesn't really do anything interesting.
We have to save it on our computer.
Yeah, you need to copy it to your own folder. So you want to be able to, like, when you look at it in the Finder, see server RB and Twitter helper next to each other. Okay, and it requires the Twitter gem, which we already installed with the gem file. So it should magically just work. And we need to require it as well in turn. Oh crap. And I think we do it this way. Actually, give me a minute to fiddle. I just want to make sure this works. Well, I broke stuff. Oh, what on earth? Well, that's confusing.
Suggestion. Maybe for the coming days and weeks, maybe it's good if we have like a kind of a rough idea of what's coming up in which week, and maybe even more or less what the focus of each day is, so you can kind of like prepare yourself a bit, and then it would be kind of good to have some overview of when you think you're going to be where.
The
what's coming.
is per week.
Per week it's there, yeah.
Per week is already pretty good.
Yeah, it's not so detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is okay. I'll maybe try and say the day before. Usually,
Yeah, exactly. Or you can
Yeah.
also post it on the.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's usually why I don't do it per day, because we won't stick to it really. Some days we'll go quicker, some days we'll go slower.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think it's good to kind of focus. Okay, this is going to be the core of today's lesson, and then
Yep.
if you don't get something, make sure you get the important thing.
Yep, definitely. I've totally broke my code, so I kind of need a minute to fiddle.
Oh, how did you, your Dropbox?
Yeah, like a week. Did you get it?
Well, you sent us, I got it in the email.
Okay.
Should get
Cloud
most
Cloud.
of it. Yeah, I got an email from you and then I just go through that hours. Otherwise I
Okay.
just send back in.
Maybe like a local
Hmm?
so maybe like a local
It's kind of funny because there's like
I'm not sure. It works fine when I don't have Sinatra.
Did you not put an invite to it?
I think I did, but I can do that.
Okay, unpause. Alright, so where were we? We've just added the Twitter helper. And we have a Twitter helper file. And this thing is just what we had yesterday. Connect to Twitter, Twitter client search, get the first tweet, give me the text of the first tweet. So it's pretty simple. So now we've got two things. We've got one URL where we can like dynamically get something out of the URL and do something with it, like figure out what the user looked for and print something. And on the other hand, we've got something that can take some text and give us a tweet. So let's combine those. Let's do get slash tweet slash what's this? Yeah, search term and get rid of this. So let's do at tweet equals get first tweet, turn ERB, oops, tweets, no, let's call it tweet search.
And no do in this case? Or?
Oh, yes, there should be a do. Yeah, I always forget that. It'll explode and you'll get a weird error saying unexpected end. But yes, you need to have a do. Yeah, the syntax of this in general is actually pretty crazy. So again, it's one of those like, don't worry about how it works because it's obvious how you use it, because you always just do get something do blah. What it's actually doing is actually kind of crazy and quite clever, which is why it's quite tidy. But at the same time, if you try and really understand it, it'll make your head hurt. Okay. Let's create a template. It was called, what did we call it? Tweet search. So we need tweet search dot ERB.
And that's in which view folder again?
Yep. So all the ERB files go in the view folder, or it can't find them. Oh, I keep forgetting this. Search term. Wait, better idea. This bit is technically incorrect. I'll come back to that. Search term. So we want to print out what did we search for. And then the text of the tweet. Oh.
And then you stay frozen.
And font that I'm writing, it's something for me to come back to. Oh, what was the question?
I said you just missed the slash on each one.
Yep. Tweet. Okay, I made a stupid mistake. I forgot to change this. Right now it's always going to look for the word Steve, which is not actually very helpful. It should be params search term. So it's going to match an URL called /tweet/toaster and take the word toaster and put it into param search term, because that's what came in here. This will give back some text, the word toaster, and what get first tweet expects is a piece of text. So we're going to give it that piece of text that we got out of params. It will go to Twitter, give us back a piece of text, which we're going to put in tweet, and then later on we can print it out. So if everything goes to plan,
And that's also how you would usually structure it, that you have this, say, tweet processing in the main file, and then the variable in that ERB file. Or
yeah, so this is generally a pretty good structure. So all of the actual like Twitter work gets done in the other file. So it all happens over here. Because like you don't want to have this in this URL, because it's like kind of really specific stuff. It's nice to hide that away.
So that's where the function is.
Yep.
The search function.
Yep.
Okay.
And
First tweet. Okay.
yeah, and it's exactly the same code as
So it has
yesterday.
to be the same. But there we already defined the,
Hmm?
we said tweets there, right?
We did,
As a variable then.
but it's hidden inside this function.
But
So the
why
function.
is this Twitter helper is now, did we require that in the beginning also, or was that
Yep.
included?
That was what the require Twitter helper
Okay, yeah.
was doing.
So that function will give out the first tweet as a text, and since we embedded that in the variable tweet, it will be saved as
Yep.
tweet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. So this will give back
We'll get that.
this, which is the first tweet.txt.
But like, let's say we had
So nice.
a second Twitter helper, and how will it know then that it should use the function from that Twitter helper?
Well, so whenever we do require,
Yes.
it's the same as if we did copy paste. Blah.
Yeah, but like if you go now to the part where you in server.rb where you do that search, you don't really specify that, you don't really refer to Twitter helper much, do you? Or in which way do you do that?
Well, so it's like a multi-step thing. So required Twitter helper is like saying copy paste the content of Twitter helper and put it
Yeah.
in here. So it's the same as if I did this. So now there is no Twitter helper, it's literally just get first tweet is in server RB. And so that's why we don't need to refer to Twitter helper anywhere else.
Okay. So if there would be several, then like the last one would override the previous one, like in the normal .rb,
Yep.
the normal Ruby program. So like if there's two functions called the same by coincidence,
Yep, exactly.
then we have a problem.
But wouldn't you also just usually name them different names?
Well, I was thinking now, like if you just use a bunch of stuff from different people, and like maybe at some point, yeah, like
Yep.
you come across a
Yep,
But
that's
wouldn't it be easier just to change the name then?
well. So this is what what Twitter is doing here is they're nesting. This is what these colons are. They've nested all of their stuff inside the word Twitter. So So then they only have to worry about people using the word like capital T Twitter exactly. That as long as nobody else uses that exact word, they're fine. If somebody else uses the word client, which is quite a generic word, they don't have to worry because their client is buried inside Twitter. And that's also why this function scope thing is important. That I don't have to worry, did anybody else use the word tweets? Because I don't know, say somebody else wrote a function called like search Facebook and for some bizarre reason used the word tweets. Because these two are like embedded inside the function, I don't have to worry about this one interfering with this one because they're two like completely parallel boxed off versions. So for the most part, yes, that is an important thing, to make sure that you don't have things with like really generic names that will interfere, or if you are going to do it, to kind of wrap it in something. Because something, like tweets, if you have a Twitter-based app, you're going to use that word 1,000 times.
Is there like some convention or best practice on how many levels you make this requires? Like, because this one requires Twitter, and then I guess you could have also that Twitter itself requires something, and then like, I mean, that gets more and more complicated, right?
It kind of becomes like a tree.
Yeah.
So Twitter is requiring all of these things.
Yeah. But so there is no like conventions that you should not, I don't know, go more than like 3-4 levels, or
Usually the convention is you want to build each step that you don't have to worry about the before or after. So so if we hadn't looked at this bit, we wouldn't know that Twitter is requiring it. Like, all I know here is I do one line and it magically works.
yeah.
So I don't have to worry, are they requiring 10 things or a million things? I just go, hey, okay, it works. And now that I've written this, I've written it in a way that all I have to do in this one is to require Twitter helper. And at this point, I don't have to worry, is it requiring Twitter? Is it requiring a million things? I just know it works. So it's like, you worry about each step one at a time. And okay, admittedly, after a while, you need to worry about the big picture. Like if after a year you are literally requiring like a million things, you start to go, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't do that. But it's only when you notice you're running out of RAM, like you start to run the program. Like a big Ruby on Rails app, when you start running it, it'll take like 60 seconds to load because you end up using so much jams. It's like, I'll load this, I'll load that, I'll load that. And at that point, like after a couple of years, you start to go like, okay, maybe I should tone it down a bit. But in the beginning, it's always fine.
So the search term, we will, for the user, he puts that in the how do you call it now?
The
The
URL.
search, the line up here in the.
Sorry, just in the URL.
So they have to search in the URL basically.
At the moment, yeah, we're gonna make a nicer user interface tomorrow or the day
Because
after.
params takes always from the URL. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, you're running away. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Wait, Facebook. So this is less of a. Let's see, who can we go to? There we are.
Can you ask another question?
Well, actually, I'll just briefly answer this, finish this one, and then come back.
Okay.
So this is less of like a search, really, and more of like a linky early thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's more like I will give the user a link. So we're using it as a Twitter search, but only because we need something to do.
Mm-hmm.
So this style of URL is more
Yeah.
like, you give them a link than a search box. So like, I would give them a link to, where did it go? Tweet, what would I call it?
Yeah.
Tweet / hats. So I don't know, somewhere on the home page there'll be a link that they click on instead of, I mean, we can tell them, okay, go to the URL and type in America. So obviously that's not very user friendly, but I don't know, it works.
You didn't put your,
Hmm?
you didn't didn't put the nav bar.
No, which is
Um,
sort of correct
oh really?
because we never put it in the layout.
Oh, I thought it was in the layout.
Oh, well, you can put it in the layout. I just
I thought we were supposed to.
well,
and
I
then yield. That.
so it's one of these. There is
Oh,
no
maybe. Sorry, no, I did that.
currently in my
I
one.
put the footer and.
Yeah. So you can configure this any way you like. I left it, the nav bar was only on the home page
Okay.
and about. I mostly left it there just as an example.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, so the other question, just to understand how it works, is that from the server RB, it sees the function, finds the function,
which function?
get first tweet.
Yep. So,
How does it know where it is?
so 'cause remember I mentioned there's like the copy pasty thing? So whenever you do require, it's like
Yeah.
as if we went and copy and pasted.
Exactly, but then he just goes through all the requirements.
Yep.
And finds it somewhere.
Yeah, so it's like go to
Wow.
this file, copy in this code into here and then run it. So
And
it
then
immediately
it
goes,
gets the result and it goes back to the server's RB, goes to tweet search RB, and in there it plugs in the result and gives it out.
Yep.
Okay,
I think.
that's kind of how the steps.
Yeah, so by the time we get to line 29, get first tweet has been defined already because we
Yeah.
ran Twitter helper. Oh, why is that not saved? And at that point, it's kind of, I don't know, functions exist kind of semi-global, not
Yeah.
completely, but like for the most part, once they've been defined somewhere, everybody can use them within reason.
Okay.
So at that point, we can then call it at almost any time and just say, get me this thing, and it'll give back an answer. And this is roughly the same as if we did this, like on the line after. Do I still have this? Like we did that yesterday, the day before,
Mm-hmm.
that we defined a function and then we used it straight away.
Yeah, exactly. So now you have to get.
Yeah. So this is similar, but there's just a bit of a jump between when it was defined and when we used it.
Yeah. But then you could also instead put the function. You could just get. You could just return the tweet search page and put the function in that.
Yes. I suspect it won't immediately work. We can make it work.
Because there is also where you get in the search term, so you could get the search term, run the function, give out them. You know, it would be in one go instead of going.
Maybe
That's what I don't understand, why you would separate all these things, but maybe it's for later.
Well, you can, wait, it's not so obvious here.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm trying to think if I can find an example. Again, it's that thing I mentioned again with PHP, that the mixing.
Okay.
That when
Okay, yeah.
when you do it on one line, it's fine. It's not, so you can still read this. It's okay. But the problem is when you have like, actually read Amazon.com. It's when you have like really crazy big HTML. Where did view source go? Like when you have a big site and there's it's really hard to read. So you've got like really complex HTML, but because this is Amazon, they're also going to have really complex code to decide like, I want to show the featured one that is also related to the last thing the user bought. So you're going to have like this big chunk of like.
Yeah. And then it's better to just have a tweet and then they know.
Yep, exactly. And it's kind of the same way we've split this Twitter helper thing. That you want to kind of do all of the related things in one go and then get like a simple result. And then like kind of take that simple result and pass
So
it
you
to the
don't
next
have
step.
to worry about it.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And actually maybe as an extreme example, okay, so the extreme example is like, I really, really don't want to have this in here. Because in here I want to worry about the HTML. I don't really want to care about like what are the login details for Twitter, because I just want to say like, I want it to be red. Whereas this is like the total opposite end.
Okay, okay.
Um,
Oh yeah,
And-
because all that would have to be in there too, yeah, okay.
Yep. Exactly. And you can put it in there. It's just that it quickly gets messy.
So you would have let's say like the big let's say general functions in the main file, the very specific functions in like other .rb files, and let's say put it together then in the ERB files, right? Like this, or like more the
Yep. I'll see if I can find, do I have the Rails? I have another comment minion. So like Rails later on like really enforces it. It creates this folder structure for you. And it's super strict that like all of this JavaScript goes in the JavaScript folder, style sheets go in here. Everything to do with email goes in mailers. Like actually, yeah, email is a good example as well. That like, I want when somebody submits the search page to send an email saying, I don't know, someone has searched. But that would be really weird to put in the HTML. It's much nicer to have like a one-line thing saying, hey, you email thing, go send an email. I don't care how you do it, just figure it out. And then you put the complex sending an email stuff like behind the scenes. Did that make sense of like hiding the complexity away? So instead of your page having to worry about how to send emails, somebody else worries about how to send emails and you just like tell them. Because the problem is when you get to a big site, there's a lot more stuff. Like I have to worry about like picture uploading and like, I don't know, things like checking does the thing the user typed in was like the title long enough and stuff. There's so many different parts that if you try and do it all in one go, it's just a huge blob. So to split it up gets quite nice. Can I think of any good examples? Maybe look, good pad. Okay, well anyway. You get the idea. Again, it's one of these like historical things that like, it's really easy to understand when you've done it the wrong way and lived with the horrible pain of it being a mess. In fact, that's usually one of the best ways to code is by working with really bad code, because then after a month of being really annoyed, you're like, well, I am never doing that again. Or you know on your next project, like, it was really horrible having all of the logic code in the HTML, so I'm like, definitely, because this is why I do it, because I did PHP for a while. I was like, oh, this is weird. And it got really annoying. And then I did it this way. I was like, oh wow, this is so much easier. I would never ever go back, because I don't know. It's like the feeling of being really cold and then coming in from the warm. You're like, oh, okay, this is the right way to do it. Okay, but so you can put it anyway, or any which way will work. Did everyone get it working actually? Whoops. So whenever you go to localhost, I think I've probably destroyed mine quite a bit. Okay, return 16 /tweets/Steve tweet. Yep. Into the Merkle. Wait,
Smart
wait,
tweet.
slow down. So, so
Can I
one,
just
one,
change this?
wait, slow down, slow down. So one clue is that we're not getting a Sinatra error.
Mhm.
It looks different. It's literally saying the web page is not available.
Mhm.
Which means it tried to ask for something and got no response at all.
So my server is.
Bingo.
Mhm.
Which, if we look here, it just stopped. So now to restart it. Server.rb. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the ERB just means embedded Ruby. So it's like HTML with Ruby shoved in. Yep, that's good. We need to get rid of the F's, but I think, yeah. Ta-da! Okay, I think that's probably the last big thing we'll do today. Okay, so maybe let's just summarize that. Let's get rid of that. So we want to be able, oh actually no, let's add one thing just to the navbar. So let's just add another one to that URL, / tweet / I don't know, pick something. And the point is just to prove it's a normal URL that you can give the user a link to, and then they can click on it. Yours is probably tweet.
So should we choose a search term then now?
Yep.
They were predefining.
Yeah, so at the moment it's always going to go to a fixed thing. Eventually we can make it more fancy, but for now it'll do. And so if I go to the home page, I should see a link to tweets. And when I click that, I see something about America. Okay, so the summary. We can tell Sinatra not just that we want to go to a like fixed URL, but that we can go to dynamic URLs, and that it will, like, we tell it what the pattern of the URL is going to be, and if it sees an URL that matches that pattern, it will jump into this one. And we can tell it we want to pull these parts of the URL out so that we can then do stuff with it later. So like a username or a product ID. Actually, that's what Amazon is doing. Oops. Oh, it's maybe not Amazon. I'm going to go to Steam actually, because I know they do this. So the Steam website does something similar. It gives each game an ID. So when you go to an URL, it goes, okay, I'm going to look in the database for game number 236, blah, 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 and that's this one, and it has this text. So that's the kind of thing you can use this for. It's not so great for searching, because what you really want is something like hats. Something where that you can type it in. And in this case, they've put it in differently. There's
Also supposed to be better for SEO, right? When it appears, or used to be at least, like
For what?
For SEO,
Mhm.
the term that the page is about is somehow included in the URL.
Yep. So they're doing it differently, which is what we're going to get to in the next couple of days. So what we really want is to be able to do this for searching. But it's all generally the same setup.
Mhm.
Okay, so we can pull something out of the URL, and then once we've got it, we can look in params. So params is a magic hash that Sinatra creates for us, and it contains all of the stuff that is in the URL, like all of the dynamic parts of the URL. We access it like a normal hash, that we give it the key of the thing that we want, and in this case the key matches the part we told it would be different. So that's not.
So would it look when you have several parts then?
Let's change name slash. I don't know. So it will now only match an URL that is by slash Steve slash age slash one slash shoes slash shoes one, whatever. If you now just went to slash by slash Steve, this wouldn't match because it'd be looking for the full thing.
Yeah.
Oops. Let's go with this. There is sinatra. README. There is a big file with all of this stuff, but it quite quickly gets insane. That you can do really like, you can do regular expressions. So like I want to match an URL that has 2 H's but no Z's and at least 1 slash. But these are like the super crazy weirdo ones. But it means you can get really super flexible. Okay, so once we've got something out of the params, it's just a normal string. So we can pass it around to things like a Twitter thing or the database, or we can uppercase, downcase it, whatever. In this case, we set it into it's called a class level variable. It's a variable that both the get can see and the template can see. So the template isn't worrying about where the tweet came from, it's only worrying about how we're going to format it. And we can still see search term in here. And so yeah, so then when we connect all those pieces, we can get an URL that we search for something, and we get a dynamic HTML result. And I think that is about